Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Hayden with the Hill Pursuit Podcast. Today, we have episode 73, and according to Mitch, man, this is a good one. Off the show, Mitch said this is a top three ever podcast, so this is one you're not going to want to miss. To be honest, we talk a little bit about everything. A couple weeks ago, I completed the 4x4x48 challenge, and I didn't forget that I completed it, but I hadn't formally, we didn't have a formal podcast to really discuss it since completing the challenge. So stay with the show, stay with this episode for a little bit, because that happens on the back half of this episode is a little summary of the 4x4x48 challenge. We kind of start off just by catching up. Mitch has been experiencing some low back pain, and we talk about how that can happen, and the intelligent design of programming and following a plan, sticking to the plan, and just kind of trusting the process without not deviating from the plan so that you do injure yourself, right? And when it does happen, not using it as an excuse, or not being too fearful to kind of get back in the game, but also being smart about the timing. And that's a fine balance. So we do spend some time talking about how to deal with injuries, and the progress that does take time to kind of fully recover and get back in the game. But we stay along that vein almost the entire show, and the whole point of developing a plan, sticking to it, and then we kind of apply the 4x4x48 to that concept. Getting out the door for me in that challenge was the biggest victory for all 12 of those 4 mile intervals. And we really dive into that at the back half of the show. So stay with it. I'm sure this is one you're really going to like. If you are listening and you've been following along, big thanks to you. The show's growing, and we really appreciate you following and listening and sharing. You can find all of our stuff on any of the socials at Hill Pursuit. The website, hillpursuit.com. You can access any nutrition stuff, any coaching stuff, resources, podcast episodes that stream on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. So, and of course, if you want to ever reach out to me directly, hillpursuit@gmail.com. I'm happy to have a conversation, talk to you about any and everything, answer questions, just start a conversation. We really love when that happens. So thank you for listening. We really hope you enjoy this one. This is episode 73 of the Hill Pursuit Podcast. All right, what's up, dude?
What's going on, man? How's it going?
It's going good. This is episode 73. It's been a little while since we had the OGs, just you and me on the show, so it's been fun.
Yeah, I know we were talking. We were like in the background. Okay, it's just gonna be us tonight. Kind of going back to the original.
Yeah,
man. Rocking little Hill Pursuit swag tonight.
Dude, that looks sick. Actually, is that the trucker hat?
It is, man. It's a sales pitch, but kind of is at the same time. But it's not. I like the hat. Like I'm a big hat guy, and it's like a CCM suit. I love it. You got it. I don't think you don't have a hat yet, do you?
Yeah, I do. I just have an Under Armour hat. I just don't have the trucker.
You gotta get the trucker cat, man.
I do like it. I like wearing that kind of hat. So
yeah, I definitely dig
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Okay, so if you stuck with us after the shameless plug to buy our our gear, yeah, no, just kidding. But yeah, dude, let's just catch up, man. I mean, it's been a little while since we had one of these together. So, how's your life? What are you doing with training? How are things?
Good, man. Well, you had the kind of had that little self test that you did.
Oh yeah, geez.
4 miles.
Yeah.
You can go more detail about it then, but
Yeah.
training's good. I currently am in the process of clearing a bunch of property where my are going to be building. So
That's awesome.
It's been taking up a bunch of time, which is good. It's work, and in a good way. I enjoy it. It's kind of like a mental peace of mind, I should say. And training, been pretty heavy into the weight room lately. I finished a cycle probably about 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. The program specifically stated not to do something, and I was me and another buddy were doing the program at the same time. He's like feeling real good one day, worked up to some heavier singles. Of course, I was in the weight room the next day feeling real great. I'm like, well, I'm going to work up for some heavy. Way wrong thing, man. And we preach it all the time too. We were like, hey, stick to the program. And it's one of them things, like the old saying goes, do as I say, not always as I do, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I knew better. And I did it with deadlift like the same week, and I paid for it, man. I think back pain can be cliche, and I hate to say that I do. It was one of my Achilles heels. I battle with frequent back pain, um, low back pain and hips, and man, I was pretty jammed up for about 3 weeks after doing some stupid crap. Um, kind of, it's like one of the things, bro. It's you kind of learn. It's cool. It's like, yeah, I feel like if you don't battle something, I think if you do something long enough, you're gonna battle something, right? But
Yeah.
you learn stuff from going through that. So like, I was going down some rabbit holes of like mobility. So I was just like researching the heck. I kind of like dove back. I kind of forgot about the guy, but he's great. I want to read the book. I never have. It's The Supple Leopard, Kelly Starrett. So I was diving into his stuff deep, and it was cool. Now I'm integrating his stuff in like all my warm ups to some degree. Really trying to
Nice.
focus. Well, I really focus on like trying to keep my neutral pelvis, like just relaxing. He really talks about like breathing, especially when you're in a flare up of the back. And I was really trying like, hey, it's essentially telling your body it's not getting attacked, and kind of helps that overall spasm. So just small stuff like that. I think going through, and I battled it for those 3 weeks. It was kind of a pain because I kind of had to restart. I'm back on the same program, trying to be smart. I'm in my third week. I just squatted last hit. It was a 5x5. I think at like 350. I went beltless for the first four. Then I can start feeling a little bit weird, so I just up for the last set. So that's where we're at. I've been conditioning. I think I sent you a video the other. At I don't have my sled right now, so I have a log at the proc,
Yeah,
and
dude.
I just take my TRX straps. I hook a rope up around the log, and I just drive the log up and down the dirt driveway for like a half hour just for some GP.
Yeah, that was sweet. I love that.
Yeah, I think the neighbors are. I mean, it's kind of hard to see where I'm at 'cause I'm in the middle of the woods, but there's like someone like walking by a couple 100 yards away in a field.
Yeah.
He's like looking through the woods. I'm just like, hi.
It's gonna move this tree over here and then take it back to where I pulled it from a few times.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah, man, things I can't complain at all.
that's good. Was that 5x5 that you were just talking about with the first four beltless? Was that I missed it? Was that since the little tweak, or was that how it was tweaked?
No, no, that's since the tweak. That was
Okay.
just last. That was just last night. For the last
Okay.
three
Well, good.
weeks,
Good.
I'm feeling pretty good, and
Good.
I was excited to see how I felt tonight. Um, and the only thing I have is like normal soreness, like
Nice,
nothing, like no aches. It's just like what I would anticipate. So
dude. The low back pain is. I don't think it can get any more relevant to have that kind of discussion about whatever you said. Like, if you do it long enough, you're going to be battling through some stuff, man. That's
mhm.
something you battle through for sure. I've dealt with it a handful of times. I think I think I remember telling you like the first time I really flared it up. I was deadlifting and didn't warm up long enough, right? So kind of back to your point, take your time with the warm up,
Yeah,
integrate some specific movements or mobility work to warm up properly. I didn't do that. And then since then, I've re-aggravated it a few times. I think it's super ironic. I think one time I re-aggravated it. Um, I don't know if I was with Ken, but I was like close to being like with him in real time. And I was just like literally just doing burpees and hyperextended at my lower back just too quick.
Yeah.
Something silly like that. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but it was something fast and a quick hyperextension. And he was like close proximity doing something else, in the gym. And that's just super ironic that that's another time that happened with Ken, another very close friend of the show, right? But dude, so many people deal with low back stuff. So many
Yeah.
people. And it's not, you hear low back and it's like, oh, that person doesn't know what they're doing. No, dude, it can happen to absolutely anybody. It happened to you. I would say you're extremely experienced with lifting. It happened to me. I'm fairly experienced myself. I have a couple athletes that deal with it. Dude, it also happens, like, this is what we don't know yet, right? It also happens when you get older. you know,
Yeah, man.
you're gonna wake up and you're just gonna like bend over and pick up a kid's toy off the floor and whoop, tweaked my back. I'm out for a couple weeks, and then take it a step further. I'm not just 30s anymore, dude. 50s and 60s. You're just gonna wake up with aches and pains. I mean, our bodies aren't built to last for forever, and the lower back is definitely a problematic area for a lot of people. So I'm not dealing with it personally myself, thankfully, right now, but I have a couple people. I know a couple people who are. So you have to be disciplined when something like that happens. You
Yeah.
have to go slow. You have to take your time. You're not overloading stuff. If there's a movement that it doesn't feel good, ignore the movement for a little bit. Unless we're not competing for world championships in anything, right? So
Mhm.
think about your life. Think about your life. Just stop doing the movement for a couple weeks. Take your time, add in some extra mobility, make sure you're healing and recovering as best as you can. Like, man, I mean, it's just so important. And a lot of people I feel like a lot of people when that happens, they're like, oh no, I can't waste this week, or I can't waste this week and next week, and I have to try it again. I have to try deadlifting again, or whatever it is, and see if it still hurts or whatever. 2 or 3 days later, it's like, yo, think about what you're doing, man. I mean, what are you gonna accomplish if like it doesn't hurt? Like, who cares? Good for you. Like, take your
Yeah.
time and just avoid it for a little bit. Be intelligent. Do other things surrounding that movement, right? You don't have to do that movement exactly, but go ahead.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think there's also the other end of the spectrum too, man, where it's like, hey, my back, and I'm not gonna ever, I don't ever want to be this person. I think there's the other end of the spectrum too. Like, I don't do this, and this, and this because I have low back pain. Okay, so you're just gonna totally nix that out. Did you ever tried anything to, fix it instead of just like, you'll tell people you have bad back pain or you have low back pain. Oh, stop deadlifting. Don't deadlift heavy. Okay, have you ever tried anything to maybe, got to the point where, hey, I can deadlift heavy.
Yeah.
I'm disciplined in my mobility. Because for me, as soon as the more mobility, it's kind of like a buzzword, but if I know I'm starting to learn what is working for me. Okay, it's listening to my body. If stuff's feeling a little bit tweaked, I have to be able to recognize and say, hey, today's not the day to load the bar. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Live to die another day. If I'm feeling okay, things are a little tweaked, I'm going to give it a good warm up. Right. I'm at the point now where if I only hit my main list, but I have like a real solid warm up, and my warm up is almost actually a mini session. And I'm not like a huge, like, it's not mobility. I'm actually trying to do movements. And it's just getting my body ready. I'll hit a bunch of like, I'll come back and say I'm squatting. I'm like doing like a mini session, and then I'm like doing singles on the squat, working up to like my working
Yeah.
sets. And it's just like, hey, if that's all I do for the day is my main set, I'll come back to the accessories tomorrow. It's not a big deal. I'll rather crush that main lift rather than try to get it in. And like you said, that day you weren't warmed up. Okay, what were you accomplishing if you're not warmed up right? You push it just to get your work in, and then you're out for 3 weeks when you could have just
Yeah.
pushed your accessories back for the day.
Yep.
And then third, I think I lost a train of thought, but like I said, just being disciplined in mobility, listening to the body, and taking more time to warm up. I think
Yeah.
those have been those have been my big like learning over the last probably year that I've always had the low back pain, but it's probably the last year that I'm really learning. And it's also conducive to your life, right? Like whether you have like a job, it's not just you might not know what you're doing, but you might just be in a position in life where, hey, that's where your stress is at,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't use it as an excuse either. Like you
Mhm.
said, I mean, because it's such a problematic area, I think it's definitely an area that people do lean on as an excuse for not doing something or not being able to do something. But um, most of the experience I have with it personally, and then also just like knowing people who have it, it can be a serious problematic area. So, but dude, you're completely right, and I've seen that before too. Like using it as a crutch and saying, "Oh, well, I can't do any hip, flexion extension because it's going to put way too much pressure on my lower back." Well, hold on. There's probably some other things happening. Maybe you're right, but maybe you don't know how to move correctly. So let's start there too. Like maybe your form or technique needs some work as well. And if let's work on it and tighten it up so you can do these movements and not
Yeah.
use the excuse anymore. But yeah, dude, just so kind of like on the same idea of like that extended warm up. So I met with an athlete today, a triathlete from
Mm.
the Victory Multisport team. We met at the pool at 6 a.m., which, by the way, he's definitely one of the most avid listeners of the show. So I know he's going to listen. So Andrew absolutely destroyed the pool session today, but um, we warmed up for a while today.
Mm.
And we met so that we could go over some technique stuff and do some drills and hone in on some areas that we could I guess just focus on to improve efficiency for him. So um I didn't even look at him for like the first 20 minutes. Didn't even look at him like intentionally. We were just warming up. We took 20-ish minutes. We did super slow, nice and easy warm ups. We hit some like moderate 50s, some hard 50s. We threw the paddles on, did a little bit of like resistance work. Got the heart rate up, and then kind of cruised in for a little bit. We probably hit about 1,000 before we started drilling at all. So then I start watching him, and man, put him to work. I mean, I think when you're warm, and that's the other thing about the water, it's tough to like warm in the water because your your heart rate stays low when either the water's cold or your chest is under the water, but like your not to get too nerdy, your cardiac output stays the same because your stroke volume increases to kind of compensate whatever. So you can still put out like relative workload intensities. You just can't like go off of heart rate or whatever. But anyways, it's still good to get like the blood flowing and get your breathing up and kind of get your body ready for like the elasticity that's required in the shoulders, the hips, making sure your neck's good to go, your upper body's nice and loose. And then dude, he was hitting drills like great, like just working hard and able to work hard because we took that extended warm up. So
Yeah.
able to work hard, improved a few things, got some areas to focus on, which was awesome. And then we kind of just settled into like an easy 30-minute jog outside. It was like 25 degrees, but whatever. We fell into a nice, easy jog and just kind of talked shop for a little bit and made sure that we were on the same page with programming. And dude, he loves the show. I love that. So he's always
Cool.
asking, like, when's the next episode coming out, too. So big shout out to Andrew from Victory Multisport for just crushing the day today, and also big thanks for listening. But I
Yeah.
wanted to share that because we were just talking about the extended warm up and stuff.
Yeah. Well, first off, it's hard to ignore without saying thanks for, listening, supporting, and keep, keep at it. That's awesome. It's always
Yeah,
cool to hear people that are getting after it. Um, And the warm up thing too is I kind of adopted it from somebody else. Matt Wenning. I'm not sure
Yep.
if listeners are familiar. I'm sure you're familiar. So essentially, like, and I try sometimes time based. I'm altering some stuff, but I might be a little bit wrong exactly what he prescribes. But essentially, it's like 4 sets of 20 to 25 reps. I can't remember verbatim. And just like and you're just doing 3 different movements, kind of around what you're going to be doing for that main event for the day, right? Um, and you're just you're steadily moving. It's getting blood into those muscles. You're priming your mind to just the movement pattern as well. And it's like a steady movement. So he says try to get it done within, like, I think it's like under 15 minutes. So it's like a good way to work some GPP in, like your heart rate's getting jacked up for like 15 minutes. His reasoning was behind it. He trains a lot of tactical athletes like firefighters, first responders, military. And he's like, I only get like a short block with these guys, right? And he's like, I need to get them conditioned, but I also want them to be in the weight room, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, that's where he kind of adopted it. He's like, hey, here's 15 minutes before the session. Their heart rate's jacked up on a daily basis, and it's also getting them primed for. So he's kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So that's kind of where I adopted it from, and so far it's been working out. So
Yeah. Nice. Nice. Should we talk about 4448 here real quick? Dude, I'll be
yes,
honest, until you kind of brought that up, I didn't forget, but I kind of forgot that we didn't like formally talk about it after or anything.
yeah,
But
and I haven't talked to you about it in person either.
I know. So on that note, I took a bunch of video with the 4x4x48. So I just haven't finished, but I am going to try to edit that into like a little short. So I'll try to get that out too. And that should be a nice description of kind of how it was and things I learned along the way. But dude, that was a battle. That was a
Mm-hmm.
battle. That was like, you know, a great blueprint for what you said earlier, stick to the program, right? The program being get your butt out the door every 4 hours. That's it. Just go. Get out the door every 4 hours. Just go. You'll get it done. It's not going to be fun every single time. Your body's not going to feel great, but stick to the program and just get your butt out the door. And that was like by far the biggest thing I kind of kept saying to myself was, the first few rounds, dude, were a lot of fun. I'm gonna be honest. It's
Mm-hmm.
cool. It's exciting. You're like, oh, I'm going through this, and it's something that, you know, one, is physically challenging, right? But the big component of this, and I'll give my perspective. The bigger component of this is just the mental game. Um,
Absolutely.
you do not need to be crazy in shape to complete this challenge. Heck no. I'm not anywhere near the best shape I've ever been in, and I'm gonna be in way better shape 3-4 months from now once the season is like here and I'm racing. This was a mental challenge, is what it was. It was not, dude. Don't get me wrong. I was sore, right? I was sore and it was hard. Didn't feel comfortable. But this was, I mean, I would say this was 90% mental, dude. 90%. Just getting yourself out the door, figuring out how much you can sleep, um, whether or not you want to sleep. Because, dude, it got to the point that sleeping and then waking up was so hard. It was hard to wake up if you're in a deep sleep for only an hour. You know,
Yeah.
it was hard. So I got to the point where I'm like, dude, I don't even want to fall asleep because it's going to be harder to get up than it is going to be to just stay awake.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're starting to figure out these different things and weigh the options that you have, I guess. And another thing that I did that I guess you don't have to do, I don't even know anybody personally who's done it, to be honest, but actually I do, but we didn't really talk about it. But someone on Victory ended up messaging me and telling me that they've done it before, but that was the extent of our conversation. But anyway, aside from that, I didn't like talk to anybody to figure this out. But yeah, I mean, there's really no experience to fall back on. There's, you create a game plan and um, try to execute the game plan, and it's not something that you're supposed to travel for. Like you're not doing a run and then like driving 2 hours to visit relatives and like hitting another run. Like, no, no, no. You're doing your run, you're coming back, you're fueling, you're attempting to sleep, you're attempting to, use a Theragun and recover, or, hop in the ice bath, right? I did that a few times, and implement these different recovery strategies like acutely in between each run. And there's no time to do anything else. You got to think like, dude, it's every 4 hours. And if you run it, if you run 4 miles at a 10-minute pace, that's still only 3 hours and 20 minutes in between.
Mhm.
Which I'll say I made the mistake of running at like a 10-minute pace the first couple. And I'm like, all right, dude, pull back. Let's just complete this and just kind of cruise, So I started hitting 11s, and again, I have to do a little bit of math and kind of figure out my average overall and stuff. But I did one loop with my father-in-law. He ran like 3 of the 4 miles with me once, and that was a lot of fun. But the loop is like, it's hilly enough that if you don't run it often, so that's where I run, right? So I'm familiar with it, but it's hilly enough that if you don't run it often, you got to take your time. So I think we averaged like 13 something that loop, and that wasn't even, that wasn't an easy that we're working. He was working, and I'll absolutely run with anybody if they want to run with me. I don't care if it's slow or not. So
Mhm.
that was huge for me, actually. Is he ran I think he actually ran two intervals with me. He ran one at like 6 p.m. on day one, and then he hit me up at like 10 a.m. the next day, I think is what it was, or maybe 2 p.m. I forget, but ended up running twice with me. I think he ran a total of like 5 miles, which was clutch. I mean, that was really helpful for me to have somebody. But dude, I mean, it was hard. It was hard, but you know, it was mentally hard for sure.
Yeah.
It wasn't the physical challenge I thought it would be, if I'm being completely honest. It was a physical challenge, 100%.
Mhm.
But the mental aspect kind of threw me for a loop, and that's where you make the money. Like that's where I learned a lot about what I can handle and what comfort zones exist or don't exist. And um, it was pretty intense. 2 a.m. The second night, you're running by yourself, and you're just you have like another 20 miles or whatever, and 24, whatever, 20 miles. And I mean, it's hard.
You think, that's awesome. I really doubt that you wouldn't do it, but do you think it was the sleep that was probably like the biggest factor?
So I didn't get terrible sleep. I think over the 2 days, 48 hours, I think I got like 8 hours of sleep.
Mhm.
Not great, not good at all, right? But I mean,
So
it's not like I was 100% sleep deprived.
right, right. So
So
technically, it's like 4 hours a day. You're like at kind of in a
yeah,
sense. Hmm.
but I mean, the reason behind that, I mean, you don't want to sleep during the day if you can avoid it, because then you're messing with your circadian rhythm, and that's going to mess with your runs at night and throughout the day. So I tried my best to maintain normalcy. I did try to catch naps from time to time, but I think I got 8 to 9 hours total, which I was actually surprised by. I didn't think that was bad at all.
Oh,
Um, and I actually felt okay in terms of like the rest. It took
what
me,
what what'd your normal rest look like? Like what was like? Hey, you got in from a run. Like what was your normal
yeah.
like three and a
So
half hour break?
so after 10 p.m., 2 a.m., I slept. That's it, just those two.
Okay.
But then I did that the second night as well. Um, I stayed awake after 6 a.m., and then I stayed awake after 10 a.m., stayed awake after 2 p.m., stayed awake after 6 p.m. one or two times in there in those intervals, I tried to catch a nap, but that nap was only like, you know, 30 minutes, just because I didn't want to sleep too long. So basically, I would get back, I would start drinking immediately, electrolytes, water, supplement if I felt I needed to. And I would pretty much eat anything that I wanted to eat. Like anything that I felt I wanted to put in my body, I would eat. So if it was like a bowl of cereal or a PB&J, like I was not worried about the quality of my calories because I was like, I think I burned over like 6,000 a day, but so I was just eating whatever I wanted to put into my body, and that it worked. Like it felt fine. I didn't have any GI issues. It's not something you're taking like gels, like pre-digested anything. Like this is 48 hours. It's not like I need this stuff to like get in my system quick. I could eat anything I wanted to and know that it was going to be there on my next run or next two runs. So, the fueling was fine. I'd put my feet up if I could in the middle of the day, but dude, there was an interval or two that I was by myself with the kids. Like I I was still living life. I was still doing dad stuff, and I kind of had that's the time that I could do it. It was the 2 days I did it were the only days that I could fit it in. So that meant I had to sacrifice like a little bit of rest that maybe I could have got if I had like a completely controlled environment, but that's okay. I still did it. And dude, after my 6 a.m. after my 6 a.m. run on the second day, I only had 10, 2, and 6. So I had 12 more miles. And we had family visit the day before, which was not planned at all,
Oh man.
which was okay. It was fine, right? The in-law, I got the run in with him. It was fantastic. But the visit, of course, you're hosting people and all that stuff. They wanted to go out to breakfast, which I started getting nervous about because I was like, look, I got 12 miles. I don't want to go anywhere. I got to keep my feet up. I'm not trying to watch my kids at this restaurant. Like, can we please just stay here? Nope, we go to breakfast. So I went to breakfast and I was dressed to start running from breakfast because I didn't know how long it would take. Um, Thankfully, it actually ended a little bit early, so I rushed home really quick and I was able to like run my normal route at the given time. But talk about adding stress where you don't want to add stress. But um, anyway, in summary, I stuck to the plan. I got my butt out the door every 4 hours on the dot, on the dot. Like I uploaded and shared every single run I did, and I started it at the exact minute, all 12 intervals. So there was no compromise there, and that's the deal that I made when I started, and um, it was fun. I can't say I would like will do it again, but I definitely would say like I'm not opposed to doing it again because it was a cool challenge. I enjoyed it, and I'm sure there are ways to I could go faster or I could do something different or pick different hours or put myself in a different environment. I mean, the other thing I did was every single run was outside, and I know that not everybody does that. So I had a headlamp and I had rain gear. Like it was crappy and cold weather, so there was a lot of different variables going on. But dude, that's the deal I made. And I think I even said at one point, like, dude, I didn't show up to do this and run it on my treadmill. Frankly, I didn't. Um, there's not much for me to learn or think about on my treadmill in terms of becoming a better human and challenging myself and pushing my limits. So I wanted to be out in the element, whatever that was. If it was raining, and it rained for probably 4 or 5 of the 12 intervals, and it was freezing for a bunch of them. And I had like hats and gloves on and headlight in the rain at 2 a.m. I mean, dude, that's where the money's made. I really feel like that's what was most valuable about the experience is just getting out there every single every single, on the dot, every 4 hours I got out the door, and I was proud of that. So
Yeah, man, that's awesome. It definitely
yeah,
definitely takes some grit, that's for sure. And we could get into like the whole like hey, can grit be made or not? You know what I mean? Like that kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
I think there's people that have it innately, and I think there's people that, hey, maybe they don't realize they have it until they're put in a situation.
Yeah.
Obviously we know you have it, so that's pretty
Well,
cool.
I mean,
So
dude, it's not like it's not always something you're born with either. I mean, we do these hard things to learn about ourselves, right?
yeah.
It's kind of like the whole I mean, think about the analogy here. You know, every time you get on an airplane, they tell you about the oxygen mask, right? What are you supposed to do? You got to put your own oxygen mask on first so you can help other people, right?
Hmm.
You got to take care of yourself. You got to challenge yourself to figure out like who you really are and what you can actually accomplish, so you become a better human. You can impact more people, so you can be a better husband or father or wife or mother. Like, we're not just doing this for fun, for like arbitrary reasons. We're trying to be better people when we do challenges like this, and you know, take away from it what you can, and just grow and challenge yourself and continue to do that. And I think that's kind of why I did it. That's exactly why I did it. And I'm glad to have learned what I learned and what I'm capable of mentally and physically. And frankly, it's just on to the next one, because that's not where it stops. We got to keep challenging ourselves.
Yeah, I like that you said that too, man, because I'm not you obviously know, and people listen, I'm not a social media guy like whatsoever. And I feel like a lot of things like that, like in this day and age too, it's, hey, I did this challenge. Hey, let me post it real quick. And that's like the only reason. It's like superficial. And hey, it's up to the person, like it's up to the person to be like, you could do the challenge and get nothing out of it, right?
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And or if you truly dive into like, hey, this is what I'm feeling, and I'm not trying to get like weird about things, but if you kind of study like what you're thinking at certain times, like that's where the growth is, and that's cool. Like you're not doing it to like, hey, here's it, checkbox, I'm on to the next,
yeah,
cool, rock on and
right.
drive on, and so that
Yeah,
speaks volume, dude.
yeah. I mean, dude, we could have a whole show about that. And like, I'm a firm believer about challenging ourselves and trying to grow just as people, to be better and make the world around us kind of just seem easier to manage, because dude, we live in a fallen world and we got to be as strong as we possibly can now.
Yeah,
So
man.
that's the truth of it. But anyways, we're kind of running out of time. So um yeah, dude, episode 73, this was fun. I'm glad we got to find this time, just kind of taking it back a little bit. The OGs kind of hitting a good cast, a little bit of everything too today, which is cool. So um, haven't done the outro in a while, so don't hate me if I do it wrong. But if you do listen, thanks for listening. We appreciate it. The cast streams everywhere. Okay, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Google, anywhere you get your podcasts, you can find it. So we recently did. If you're someone who listens to the show, we started a YouTube channel. So if you want to check that out, you can, at Hill Pursuit. We also have the website, hillpursuit.com, where you can access all the podcasts. We have a blog that we hit up from time to time. All coaching info, nutrition info, any information you want at all, actually, about Hill Pursuit and what we do. And you can always reach out to us, hillpursuit@gmail.com. Ask any questions, give us some feedback, and we love when that happens. So please continue to do that. And again, thanks for listening. This was episode 73. We'll see you next time.